So the Chiefs had a draft prospect in for a visit today, which tells me they are considering him seriously enough to get a look at him given his injury history, and if this visit goes well, I believe this could be a game changer for the future of the Chiefs for several reasons I'll get into in today's video. So I've got to talk about that, a linebacker being brought back today, Charles Omenihu ready to pop off this season, and more. But first, how about those? Alright, first up, I want to shout out a quick thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video, but more on them later because earlier today the Chiefs re-signed a key depth piece and special teamer in linebacker Jack Cochrane. He's honestly a pretty underrated piece for the defense and special teams, and the fact that he signed means his health is most likely no longer a concern. He actually fractured his ankle week 16 against the Houston Texans on a kickoff in the first quarter and consequently got placed on IR for the remainder of the season. But if he wasn't in a good place from a health standpoint, the Chiefs definitely would not have gotten this deal done. I'm not sure he's back to 100% or anything like that, but I would imagine he's pretty close and should definitely be 100% by the start of training camp. I'll talk about this more later in today's video, but the Chiefs medical staff, they are very conservative and wouldn't risk players' health by rushing them out there too early. That's going to play a role in who visited with them today. More on that later. Let me talk about Jack Cochrane among some other things first. Cochrane played middle linebacker for South Dakota in college, and I believe was second on the team in tackles his last year there. He went undrafted in 2022, but signed with KC shortly after the draft and played almost 900 special team snaps for the Chiefs since getting here. So each year he's been a top special teams player, but did play 180 snaps on defense in 2023, even stepping in at the Mike linebacker spot as the green dot when Nick Bolton was out due to injury and Drew Tranquill suffered a concussion in that game. That's why when the Chiefs offered him a right of first refusal tender, it made a ton of sense to me, even if it was for all $3.3 million. I don't think it actually was. Have no way to confirm that for a couple weeks when we actually see his cap number hit spot track, over the cap, and those kind of places. But Nazeeh Johnson was also hit with the same tender, and he ended up reworking the deal to a lower amount that instead included more guarantees. I would think that Cochrane's number is somewhere in between Nazeeh's and $3.3 million, but again, we won't know for a couple of weeks. Either way, having a valuable backup Mike linebacker who can play a piss ton of special teams is nothing but a good thing. I'm also glad to see veteran safety Mike Edwards back in the fold. He spoke with the media this week saying a return with KC is great. He feels like he fits well in Spags' defense, a coordinator who likes his guys moving all around the secondary. And with Justin Reed now gone, Mike Edwards said he's going to do his best to step into that veteran leadership role as he enters year 7 of his NFL career. And honestly, that's a pretty valuable thing for the secondary because the safety room outside of Mike Edwards, of course, and Deon Bush is pretty young overall. Whatever role they have in store for him, he said he's up to the challenge. I personally love the idea of Mike Edwards back there in whatever capacity they see fit. He is a ball hawk after all. He racked up 7 interceptions in just 3 years with the Bucs. Didn't get any his rookie year, but the 3 years after, 7 INTs, housing 3 of them, and then he did snag 1 pick with the Chiefs in 2023, but he also played a big part in scooping 2 fumbles up. One of them was the Tyreek Hill fumble that Brian Cook housed. So the guy is a playmaker through and through. Another playmaker is, of course, defensive end Charles Omenihu, who actually strip sacked Easton Stick that year. Week 18, the last week of the regular season, and Mike Edwards picked it up and took that fumble 97 yards to the house. So a nice little connect there from Mike Edwards to Charles Omenihu. But he's back on a 1-year deal talking about Charles Omenihu, and he told the media this week that his goal this year is to play his best ball for an entire season for the first time in a few years. No distractions and nothing he has to overcome, whether that's suspension or an injury. As a reminder, he served a 6-game suspension in 2023, and year 2 with the Chiefs, he was recovering from that torn ACL he suffered in the AFC Championship game against the Ravens, not returning until the back half of the season. The time he missed in those 2 years, combined with him not looking quite 100% after his return from injury last year, he said played a factor in free agency, but Omenihu is glad he's back with the Chiefs, a place he wants to be, an organization he knows well, can play once again in a scheme he's proven to be effective in, and help the team win games. He's training hard with the goal of getting better after his injury, preventing injuries altogether in the future to the best of his ability, and obviously he wants to play his best football yet in 2025. Someone I'm looking forward to seeing take things up a notch with the help of the entire offense is, of course, Quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He could be seen with his fellow quarterback teammates and pass catchers in Texas, training, working out, and getting ready for the next phase of the offseason. So I want to talk about that and a very intriguing player KC visited with today on a top 30 visit and why it's so significant. But first, after reeling in my subscription services last year as we looked over the budget, a couple more of these slipped through the cracks as months went by, and I once again found myself being charged every month for 2 subscription services I completely forgot about. Well, that's where the sponsor of today's video, Rocket Money, is here to help. This personal finance app helps you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. I personally love using Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. Once you connect your bank account, Rocket Money identifies all of your subscriptions in a single list. From there, you can select the ones you don't want anymore, and Rocket Money may be able to help you cancel with just a few taps. No need to worry about customer service calls or none of that. In fact, Rocket Money has helped save its customers an average of $740 a year when you use all the app's premium features. They've also helped customers save over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. They've certainly helped me multiple times, freeing up my time so I can focus on making the best possible content for all of you. So to save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/thosechiefs or click the link in the description to get started for free. All right, so Patrick Mahomes and company have been working out together in Texas as they get ready for OTAs. We know this thanks to Preston Smith. He's a videographer, and his wife Heather, a photographer, as they captured photos and videos of these guys in some of their throwing sessions. So definitely make sure to check out their work on Instagram for more. But this has been a theme over the last couple of years now for Mahomes, training with guys in Texas. He gets to work out, build rapport, they go and eat together and just get to know each other, especially the new guys, off the field. That obviously helps them develop trust and all that as the season moves along. And it's also worth noting that KC's other quarterbacks, Chris Oladokun, Bailey Zappi, and Gardner Minshew, could be seen out there as well throwing passes to guys like Justin Ross, Hollywood Brown, Sky Moore, Nico Remigio, as well as tight ends Noah Gray, Robert Tonyan, and Jared Wiley. I don't think we've seen Kelsey there yet, but Kelsey as a veteran doesn't really need to be there at this point in time, in my opinion. Well, hopefully that means Jared Wiley is healing up nicely since he was out there after suffering that torn ACL during a practice back in November. I have no idea how many of these guys are actually going to make the 53-man roster, other than, of course, Hollywood Brown, Jared Wiley, Noah Gray, and Nico Remigio. But the earlier you can get work in with these quarterbacks and just build rapport, timing, all of that, the better. If I had to put money down right now as to who was going to make the roster out of these guys, I'm definitely saying Noah Gray and Jared Wiley for the tight ends. And then, of course, Hollywood Brown and most likely Nico Remigio as the team's returner, at least for the wideouts. The new kickoff rules now have touchbacks resulting in the ball being placed at the 35 rather than the 30, so kick returns will be a much more frequent thing this season as the kicking team is going to aim to land that ball inside the 20 and try and force a return. Well, Nico Remigio will definitely be playing a role in that. Now, I will say this, Robert Tonyan, the veteran tight end, definitely has a shot to make the roster if KC rolls with 4 tight ends on the initial 53 like they did last year and don't end up drafting a guy in this year's draft. Tonyan did have a nice 2020 season, all things considered, with the Packers. He caught 52 passes for 586 yards and 11 touchdowns, so the guy definitely can contribute if called upon, that's for sure. Sky Moore, let's talk about him. He's on the last year of his rookie deal, but after a very unproductive 2024 season, I mean, he literally didn't catch a single pass and then got injured and placed on IR. He's nowhere near safe to make the 53-man roster, in my opinion. I think he gets a chance to earn a spot with training camp, preseason, all of that, but could very well find himself playing elsewhere or maybe even landing on the Chiefs practice squad if he clears waivers. That's the same for Justin Ross, who was on the team's practice squad for much of last year, only playing in 2 games and seeing 1 target. There's nothing wrong with having guys that know the system around in case of emergency, though, so Justin Ross would be good if he didn't end up making the roster, being on the practice squad for another year. There's also the thought that KC drafts another wide receiver in this year's draft, which will only make the competition in that room that much greater. Now, a guy that the Chiefs had out recently for a visit is wide receiver Isaiah Bond, at least according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. He is another smaller bodied but fast wide receiver out of Texas. He's like 5'11", 180 pounds, runs a sub 4.40. It's like 4.39. So you know Andy Reid, Brett Veach, all those guys, they like quick, smaller-bodied guys. You're not going to be worried about his contested catch ability because they like to scheme people open, and that's Mahomes' preference. throw to the open guy more than anything else. So not worried about that, but something I am a bit concerned about at this point in time is the fact that he recently had an outstanding warrant for an alleged sexual assault incident. He turned himself into the police at Frisco, Texas last night or yesterday, I believe, and did post bond and got released. After that, Isaiah made a public statement saying he'd appreciate the time and opportunity to defend himself and prove the claims made were patently false. And as we've seen with the Xavier Worthy situation that happened recently, it's definitely best to let the legal situation and investigation play out before rushing to judgment innocent until proven guilty. I say all that to say this, though. That could cause Isaiah Bond to fall in the draft, and I have no idea if that actually removes Bond from KC's draft board or not. He was like a day 2, day 3 guy, but it could cause him to fall in the draft. We'll see what ends up happening. The point is, he's a guy they just recently had on a top 30 visit. And before I get to the most intriguing top 30 visit the Chiefs have made yet, in fact, it was today, the newly added defensive end Janarius Robinson also spoke with the media this week. He missed his entire rookie year due to injury, but spent the last 2 with the Raiders as a rotational depth guy. However, he boasts a rather impressive 9.33 relative athletic score, and I'll be curious to see what Spags and Joe Cullen can get out of him from a production standpoint this year if he's able to make the roster. Janarius shared with the media that his agent was in contact with the Chiefs throughout free agency and felt like it was a great fit for him, all things considered. After formerly playing with the Raiders for a couple of years, he said he likes not having to worry about going up against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and is very grateful for the opportunity to give things a go here with the Chiefs. So while some people are glad they don't have to go against 2 elite players like that, others dream of playing on the same side of the ball with them on offense. Well, one of those players could possibly be the left tackle out of Ohio State in Josh Simmons. I've talked about him a bunch on this channel for good reason. It would be incredible if the Chiefs were somehow able to get a franchise left tackle in the draft, but that's very difficult to do when you are drafting at the end of all these rounds. Well, 2 of the most mocked players to the Chiefs in round 1 by a lot of draft analysts is going to be left tackle Josh Conerly Jr. out of Oregon and Josh Simmons. Conerly Jr. might take a bit of time to develop to be NFL ready, but honestly, Simmons might take some time as well as he works back from that pretty serious knee injury he suffered last season. The good news is that's actually possible this year. Drafting a tackle that doesn't have to try and play right away like Kingsley Suamataia was forced to do last year because the Chiefs signed former 49ers backup left tackle in Jalen Moore to a 2-year deal. I don't know if the Chiefs will for sure get an offensive tackle in round 1 or anything like that, as it really depends on how the board falls, but I can definitely understand the thought process from most draft analysts on why they could take one if they can get the right guy. Well, that guy could very well be Josh Simmons. The patellar tendon injury could cause him to fall in the draft, and had he been healthy, many could argue that he was the best tackle or at least a top 3 tackle in this year's draft class. Patellar tendon injuries are not the easiest to overcome, especially for a guy that's 300 plus pounds, so I get the concern there. Well, that's why the Chiefs brought him in today for a top 30 visit. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest said, yeah, this basically means Josh Simmons is on Brett Veach's draft board. Well, the best way to look at a player with potential injury concerns is to literally bring them in for a personal visit. You can't want to maybe draft a guy like that and not get Rick Burkholder and the Chiefs medical personnel to look extensively at that knee. And considering the fact that they are pretty conservative with that stuff and have been one of the most healthy teams in recent years, despite very deep playoff runs, aside from last year, yes, injuries were a definite issue. I just think that was more of a bad luck thing than a training staff thing. But this is a very important visit. Josh Simmons to Kansas City, because if Simmons' knee checks out and they greenlight that to Veach, he will be watched very closely in the draft. If Simmons ends up falling into the early 20s, he could very well be the guy the Chiefs try and trade up to get, securing who they hope to be the left tackle of their future. This is why it's so significant. They haven't drafted a round 1 tackle since Eric Fisher, first overall in 2013, Andy Reid's first year here in Kansas City. So this is a huge deal and could very well change everything for the Chiefs down the road if they are able to get him and if his health holds up. The left tackle spot has been a problem for years and has played an impact on the offense's overall effectiveness as a whole the last couple, and then the O-line could largely be blamed for both of the Chiefs' Super Bowl losses. You can have all the weapons in the world for Mahomes to throw the ball to, but if the offensive line can't hold up, it quite literally does not matter. That's why I found this top 30 visit with Simmons so intriguing. If he falls, in case he does not move up to get him, or actually lets him pass at pick 31 altogether, that means they did not like what they saw from him, at least with his health. Basically, this is the most important visit the Chiefs will have with any player before the draft and could affect how they go about things in round one. I mean, the idea of having a franchise left tackle of the future on a rookie deal is quite honestly incredible to think about. Now, I will say this, even if the Chiefs were confident in his medicals, there's still risk involved that Simmons could be at least somewhat hindered long-term by that injury, and then we don't even know if he's going to fall into the 20s. He could go before that, and we don't even know if the Chiefs could find a partner to trade up with. There's just so many dynamics to the draft, so many scenarios that could play out. It's tough to know, but I do love the idea of Simmons to KC if the medicals check out. I know some others have some reservations about this, though. They say, hey, he's a bit too small to be a left tackle at the NFL level. I will say to that, his arm length at his pro day was over 34 inches, and he's a pretty similar size to Jalen Moore. Plus, worst case, what would you really care if somebody like Josh Simmons ended up having to kick inside the left guard and just provide some valuable competition there? Well, we don't want to take a guard round one. I do not care, as long as they have the best 5 out there to protect Patrick Mahomes so they can go and win more Super Bowls. I don't really care as long as that player, that first-round player, can come in and contribute. Maybe not year one, which is why some might not like that pick. They say, hey, this is a first-round selection. Don't get a guy who will basically not be playing this year. Get a guy like a defensive tackle or some other position where they can instantly contribute and help the Chiefs get back to another Super Bowl. Again, my answer to that is pretty simple. If you have a chance to get a franchise left tackle late round one, you do it. And if he has to sit for a year, so freaking be it. But hey, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. What do you think of Josh Simmons having a top 30 visit with KC today? And if they liked his medicals, what do you think about them actually going up to get this guy? You love it? You hate it? Let me know either way in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?